Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Life, Love, and Existential Dread podcast. My name is Bryan Arata. I'm a film composer in Los Angeles. My co-host is an actor, writer, director, producer, and the protector of the Nine Realms, Odin of Asgard.
The Nine
Realms. Odin of Asgard. How you doing, Odin?
World weary, my friend. I
weary.
am burdened with a terrible purpose.
It's a lot of responsibility. I gotta tell you, it really is.
It's too much. It's really too much.
There's nine. There's not seven.
Being a
There's
dad
not
of
eight.
two teenagers. Yeah, I thought that was enough, but then the Nine Realms is way worse. It's way worse. Barely.
Yes.
Barely worse.
Yes.
I don't know. Actually, some days the teenagers are worse.
Yeah. No, I've had some. I was a teacher. I know some bad teenagers, nasty attitudes.
I couldn't do that job.
Well, don't want to be a total downer, but I do want to talk about this, and I'm fine talking about this with you. You're one of my best friends, and I want to share it with the audience because it's something that happened that's significant. It's part of life. But my mom, she did pass away a couple weeks ago, and she died from multiple sclerosis. She had it for about 10 years, and the last time I saw her was in December, and at that time she was in pretty bad shape. And I kind of thought, maybe it's her last Christmas. I wasn't sure. I was asking my sister about it. She was a caregiver for them, my father as well, for many years, just taking care of them. And she wasn't really sure. Doctors weren't sure. But I kind of thought that this last time I saw her. She died peacefully. She wasn't in any pain when she went. It's a tough thing to lose a parent. I thought I would cry. I didn't cry, except on the plane ride home. A few tears came out with a couple songs that I was listening to. Not really related to anything, not necessarily sad songs, but they just, I don't know. I think it overwhelmed me at that one moment, flying, from St. Louis to Los Angeles and just taking it all in at once. It was too overwhelming. So yeah. But each day is getting a little bit easier. Thinking about it a bit less, but still thinking about a lot. I was thinking about her and our past and everything we did as a family growing up. I got to tell everybody, my sister, she does a fantastic job. She made all the arrangements for the funeral. It's exactly what I think my mom would have wanted. Flowers, the arrangements, the funeral home, the wake, the funeral mass, and then she was buried at Jefferson Barracks Cemetery, which is a military cemetery where military people served in the military and their spouses can be buried there. And every aspect of it was planned out and was done expertly well, and nothing went wrong at all. But still, it's just overwhelming, the emotions of all that stuff. And the main thing I did, I just didn't talk. I just stopped talking. I just kept watching everybody, and people would ask me things. I'm just answering questions very simply. I guess that was my reaction in the moment.
Was that strange for you? Did you, since you're not an overly emotional person, but
No.
did you find yourself, the fact that you were going inward more as interesting? Did you take a step away from yourself and ask yourself wow, this is strange how I'm reacting to this in the moment?
I bit of that. I can't believe this is happening, but then at the same time, I know it's part of life. I knew she was in really bad shape. I knew it was coming, but still, it just is surprising and unsettling.
Right.
You were very supportive. I told you, and you were giving me phone calls and messages. Your wife Alma did the same. You guys were very supportive, and I only told a few people, very close friends, and everybody the same way. Anytime you need to talk. But I was chatting with my sister a lot, and that helped a bit. But during the funeral mass and then at the cemetery, I just kind of stopped saying stuff. But the weird thing was during the wake, when people are visiting, it's about a 4-hour time window where you can visit. And I'm seeing all these people, friends of the family and relatives, come by, and I'm yapping away. It was the weirdest thing. I just got off the plane, and my brother picked me up from the airport, and then we went straight to to the funeral home for the wake. And I'm seeing all these people come in, and I'm expecting, everybody crying and everything, but everybody's just kind of not celebrating, but talking like normal. And I'm just talking to everybody. Some of these people I hadn't seen in 35 years, something like that. And that was a trip in itself to see some of these people, particularly the, parents of friends of the family, 35 years, some of them I hardly recognized, some of them were very recognizable, but to see 35 years of age on some of these people was, wow, it was incredible. And that was not difficult to deal with. It's just, I can't believe I'm seeing you this many years
Right.
later. It's seeing
Yeah,
the
over
thing.
a little overwhelming maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I didn't have a problem with that. I mean, it was open casket. And my sister made these amazing posters of all these old pictures. And for everyone, before there was iPhones and devices and things, there was these things that you printed out, and there were actual physical photographs, and
What?
people kept them in books and albums, and you could flip through the
Did they
physical.
find this in fossil records? They know that people did this back in the day?
Yeah, it was so unheard of at this
What
time that
gods were worshipped at this time?
yeah, we had to look it up to see how it was done, and she got all these old pictures of us, growing up, and I don't know, 5 or 6 poster boards of these pictures, just I don't know, maybe 100 or so pictures on all these poster boards around the room, and people are checking these things out, and it was impressive. Again, she did everything right, exactly how my mom would have wanted it, and it was
Oh,
perfect. It was so perfect. But yeah, I'm yapping away through that, and then the funeral. It's a Catholic funeral mass in the church we all grew up in, and my sister did. There's 3 readings in a mass: first reading, second reading, and a gospel. My sister did the first, my brother did the second, and then the priest does the gospel, and then I read the petitions. Thank us for everyone being here. Let us pray to the Lord. Lord, hear our prayer. That type of thing. So I think it was good to participate in the mass a little bit. We had a singer sing Ave Maria at the end there. Heard a few tears and people crying during that. He was very good, and an organist playing there. Um, but yeah, but kind of after that, I stopped. I just want to kind of stop saying things and really kind of being outgoing. When I was the opposite the day before at the wake, so it
Hmm.
was.
And it's not something that was planned. It was something that just kind of happened. Huh?
I just well, and another thing I think affected it was I didn't sleep at all the night before, so I was
Oh.
kind of thinking about everything, but thinking too much to sleep even. So I'm
Yeah.
sure that had something to do with it. I don't know, but that's
It's a
what
lot to
happened.
process, I think. I think it's a lot for anybody to process. But I mean, I have not lost a parent, so I can't speak to that. I've lost people close to me, but I've not lost a parent, and I can imagine, even if you're expecting it, even if you know it's going to happen, it's still, you know, it's tough, and it just kind of slaps you in the face with your own mortality. I think
Yes.
it really does, and what it means to be alive and then not be alive in this world. And I think, that also depends on what you believe about the afterlife and what you believe about um, the nature of our reality and what it means to be alive. I think all of those things play into how you respond to death. I used to have a hard time with death. Like I didn't like going to funerals at all. Even for people close to me, there's a lot of friends that I never went to their funeral because I just couldn't. I couldn't. But I've recently come to more terms with it. But I don't know how I will react whenever I lose my parents or whenever I lose someone else close to me. I just don't. I don't think anybody fully knows how they're going to react.
Yeah. Yeah. My sister cried a lot, and she was closer to it than anyone. And my brother, saw my brother. He had a problem approaching the casket for some reason. He didn't seem to want to talk about it. I was like, okay, I'm not talking either. So let's just agree to not talk. Um, but it was really well, again, really well done. It was great seeing so many people, and I kept saying this to everyone. I don't know how many people were there, but I kept saying this to everybody coming in and out of the wake, that unfortunately it takes something like this to get all these people back together. Death of everyone we know, and I was like, I hate missing people this long. But part of the problem is I live in Los Angeles. Most of them, all of them, live in St. Louis. I don't think anybody flew in from anywhere else. But still, lots of people showed up, and it was greatly appreciated. So, but like I'm saying, each day is a little easier. It's not as hard as it was. I'm doing the podcast. I'm talking again, so it's
Yeah.
seems to be getting better.
And I think I'm glad that you chose to share this on our show too, because our show is about life, and it is
Yeah.
about love and existential dread. All those things are tied up in what it means to be mortal and get older and experience life. I mean, we all know that this this gig that we are on, you know, this the whole point of life is that it eventually ends, and that it doesn't go on forever, at least in the physical world that we are here, and depending on what you believe in or don't believe. And so making the time and the people matter the most, I think it really weighs home. And so getting to see those people at the funeral and reconnecting, experiencing people that in the way they are now, their age now, their mindset, their what life has done with them for 30 years or however long, and it's interesting to come back, I think, and experience people from from other points in your life where you were a completely different person the last time you saw them, and they were too. And coming together sometimes at funerals or weddings or things like that, I think I think that's neat. I think it's a really interesting way that life bumps us into each other again.
Yeah,
you know, it's
definitely.
and I mean, whatever reason, like if some, people came out of a sense of duty or out of a sense of, just, like some sort of personal need, or just because they wanted to, or, your mom obviously touched a lot of people, and that's amazing. That's amazing to see and to know, and to actually get to see your loved one that is no longer here, how they affected the world, not just you, because obviously they affected your world,
Yeah.
obviously.
And just let people know a little bit about her. She taught at a all girls private school. It's called Visitation Academy for girls in St. Louis. She taught French, religion, and Montessori, which is the real little ones, 3 to 6 years old. She did that
Oh, wow.
for over 35 years. And
Wow.
there's another great thing about that school. My sister went there, and with my mom, my sister, my great aunt, and a couple of the relatives I don't know, there were 5 generations of her side of the family that had went to that school. And my mom taught there. She went there and taught there. Then my sister went there.
Wow.
So there was a lot of history and connection with that school. And, just like you're saying, she affected a lot of as a teacher, 35 years, how many thousands of kids did she teach, even at a private all girls
Right.
school? How many hundreds of thousands of kids that she touched and their lives and taught them all these things. And
And yeah, and many of those people, maybe what they do with their lives now were directly influenced by what your mother did. I mean, teachers can hold such a powerful place in our um, direction, the course that we take in life, and sometimes we don't even know it, and it kicks in later, and it all leads back to something that was instilled in us from an educator early on. So that's a noble thing that your mom did, teaching that long. And it's not easy. It's not an easy job. It never has been. I mean, we're all sitting here today going, oh my God, kids today and blah blah blah, and it's rough, but it's always been rough.
yeah,
It's always been rough for
and
teachers.
that's part of the reason I became a teacher, because she was a teacher. My older brother is a teacher, so hey, that's a family business, I guess. I'll do it too. So
Right.
I just couldn't. They could hack it. Those two could hack it. I couldn't. I quit after eight
You're a
years.
different breed, yeah. What about your dad? How's he doing with everything? I mean, I know he knew that this was happening, but is he doing okay? Is being
He's
around the family and everything helping him?
he's doing okay. He has unfortunately he has some dementia, so he will lose his memory and not remember that some things have happened. He'll ask questions about things. There's times where he unfortunately doesn't know who I am, and it's very unsettling. I have gotten used to that a bit, and I know that's coming. But how he was going to react to this, they weren't really sure. So
Right.
he did not go to the wake, because my brother and my sister and the social worker at the nursing home all thought it'd probably be too traumatic if he keeps seeing these things and seeing her. So he came to the funeral and the ceremony at the cemetery, and he got through that fine. But I tend to agree with that. I wasn't really sure. I was like, whatever they think, whatever the social worker thinks at the nursing home, they're kind of experts in these things.
Right.
But I thought that was the right decision, and he didn't have a problem with it. So. Um, But going forward, I don't know how he will react. He forgets very quickly. Short term memory is almost non-existent. So, but then there's times, my pictures, my sister, my brother's pictures are on the wall. All of us when we were seniors in high school. And the last time I was there, he was looking up at that and he goes, "Oh, that's John, Bryan, and Mary Robin," just like that. So I was like, it comes, every once in a while it'll come
Right.
out, so he knows things. But as far as long term, I don't know how well he'll remember going forward. And my sister, my brother, they visit him. They're very close by. The nursing home's only about 10 minutes from where my sister lives. So she's there several times a week. My brother visits all the time. He lives there too. So they're visiting. And the staff at this nursing home is fantastic. There's always a full certified doctor 24 hours a day there in case something happens, bunches of nurses and caretakers. So he's getting taken care of very well. But I would just have to wait and see how long, how he deals with it long term. But so far, it seems to be okay.
Yeah, that's a hard thing, dealing with the dementia and all of that. It's one of those things that kind of scares me getting older. Being like, because I have always thought about it as like being trapped in your mind. And I don't know if that's necessarily how it's experienced by the person. And none of us know really. I think even scientists are still, doctors, they're always still trying to figure out exactly what's going on with that and how to stop it. But did you ever watch that? And I'm sorry to jump ship. I'm not jumping into a different
No.
topic here, but one of the most interesting interpretations of dementia that I've seen in recent years was there's an episode of that Stephen King TV show, Castle Rock, that they
I've
did.
heard of
And
it.
Sissy Spacek's character in season 1 has dementia. And there's an entire episode, I think it's episode 8. And it is the best episode of that whole season. And it's all from her point of view. And it uses the idea, I don't want to get too much into it because I don't want to ruin the episode for people, but it gets into the idea that dementia is actually her consciousness being able to exist in multiple time periods throughout life and actually exist there in full knowledge of where it is and what it is. So at first it's
Wow.
disorienting and confusing, but she can actually almost travel in the past or into maybe possibly the future with her consciousness. But to us, experiencing time linearly like we do, we see that as dementia, like she doesn't understand what's going on and, oh, she's frail, but really there's something else way more, spectacular going on inside of her. And I thought, how cool is that?
That
How
is
wonderful is that to think about that maybe the idea of consciousness, we think of it as only tying to this world, this one physical track that we're on with a beginning, a middle, and an end. But really, consciousness is only experienced in a fraction of its complexity in this reality.
Mhm.
And if that's the case, when we do start to leave this world, whether our brain starts, our consciousness starts to leave long before the body or shortly right before the body or whatever, what can we experience while still being grounded in this physical reality? What might we be able to experience? And maybe it's not such a bad thing to go places within your consciousness that doesn't
Yeah.
exist. I like to think of that.
That is much better to think of, that dementia is actually like that. That's much more comforting.
Yeah.
And but talking to my dad, he will ask, "Oh, I think I lost my keys," and he'll ask that 5-6 times in a row because he thinks he needs his keys, which he clearly doesn't have keys or a car anymore, obviously. But he feels like he should have keys in his pocket like most everybody does all the time. So so it's a present thing with that. But when he's quiet and by him, not talking, I don't know what's going through his head. You can't you know that's one thing. I'm looking at his face, trying to read his face, and like all the one thing about communication is all the nonverbals, how your eyes look, your face, and your mouth and reaction, and all that stuff. I'm trying to pick up on some kind of nonverbal there, some kind of communication, and it's just nothing's there when he's
Yeah.
not speaking. So
Right.
I don't know that for sure, but just kind of that's what it seems. This last time I was talking to him, so I that's and that the first time that happened when he he didn't recognize me. That was tough too. That was really tough.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it happened to my brother first. My brother came over to their house, and he walked in the house, and my dad looked up at him and said, "Who are you?" And that that whoa, that was really rough. That was like the first time he didn't recognize one of us,
Yeah.
family member.
I'm sure that was hard. How long ago was that, Brian?
That was probably 3 or 4 years ago. And his dementia is, as it does, it got a lot worse since then. And it would go in and out. Some days he could when I was there at Christmas time, he had a picture of his kindergarten class, you know, 73 years ago. He was in kindergarten. He named every single person on that picture. I had the names. I'm looking at it. I'm verifying what
I
he's
can't even
saying.
do that.
And
Yeah.
he's nailing every name, first and last name from 73 years ago. And
Wow.
so that long-term mind in there, that it's the short-term that is affected with this dementia thing. So and that's one thing I learned about dementia. I know you're not supposed to, it's the same thing with multiple sclerosis, but I looked up a lot of stuff online about it because I didn't know a lot about it, and the doctors weren't explaining. Or yes, they're answering my questions, but I just kind of want to talk to them longer, and they don't do that for some reason. So I'm looking up online about these things, and that's what they say about dementia. All that stuff is still in there, but your brain loses access to that information, which is
Like how it files it.
yeah, how
How
it
it
files it and how you remember things, short term and long term. You can no longer access that memory because of the deteriorating, neurons or whatever the thing that deteriorates with dementia. But the point is, it's still in there. And if they can figure out how to regenerate some of these things, which I guess it's a long way off, just like any of these diseases, autoimmune diseases, it's going to take a long time to figure out a cure. I mean, yeah, they can slow down the symptoms and things. Like with a lot of medications my mom was on, it slowed down the progression, but it didn't stop it. There is no cure. So, maybe that'll happen down the road. I don't know, but part of life, and then getting through it. How I'm getting through it.
Yeah. Are you doing okay now? I mean,
I think
are
so.
some days better than others? We talked about this a little bit, I know, but those aftershocks that come with losing something like this, it's like it could even be years from now. You don't even know it. And then you're like cutting potatoes in your kitchen and you get flooded with some sort of emotional, either a smell or, something happens and it just connects you to some sort of memory of loss and or just a really beautiful memory or something, and you might become overwhelmed with emotion. I mean, I am a very emotional person, so like I very I cry all the time. I'll cry at a fucking Kleenex commercial, especially when I had kids, changes your whole, But I've always been emotional. My dad's a very emotional person, and my mom is too, and my brother and I. So it's different for me, but you know, I I I always find that strange how you can be going along one minute, everything's fine, and then something happens and it brings up something from your past that you like, some traumatic event or
Yeah.
something you thought you've worked through, like the loss of a loved one, and you think you're fine and you seem fine, and then out of the blue you're driving to work one morning and you're just a blubbering mess. And
Yeah.
you don't know why.
I don't. Yeah. Maybe so. I have no idea. The way the mind works, it's tricky. Even when you have a healthy mind, it's still tricky. You don't know what's going to affect you, how your memory's going to come back to you, in what way or not. So I don't know. I don't know.
How do you feel being out there so far away from family and people you grew up with? Does that affect you at all, or are you still like, no, I'm okay out here being on my own, being away from everybody that
I do like being on my own. Even if I lived in St. Louis, I don't think I would live with my sister. Even though they got a huge house, and she said you can live here anytime you want, and they got more than enough room. I think I really like living on my own. It's nothing personal. I just like being by myself. I mean, I've been that way for a long time, so I think that's part of it. You just get used to it. Um, it was good to see family members again, friends and family. But I mean, you can do FaceTime and all this stuff. I mean, that's in Zoom meetings and things like that, and that's I do that a lot, and of course, physically being there is something different. And it was a trip to see all these people, so many years later, and remembering all the things we used to do. Lots of people that were friends of the family were in the Boy Scouts, so tons of stories about Boy Scouts. My dad was really into airplanes, so a lot of his friends that were into model airplanes came, and they're like, "Are you Bryan? Haven't seen you since you were 9 years old. God, you're even older and uglier." And I was like, "Oh,
you,
thank you."
you look the
Yeah,
same.
yeah, yeah. You still look like a cranky old fat guy. So I don't know. It's like, um,
I don't even consider you that. Well, no, you can be cranky. You can definitely be
oh
cranky.
yeah, I can, yeah, especially yeah.
Curmudgeonly, yeah.
Oh, definitely, definitely. So, but yeah, so it was fun to catch up with those people, and so it was. But I don't have a problem being away with them for long periods, and I go visit every once in a while. That's enough for me, really. I know a lot of people need to be close to family. I guess I'm not that type of person. I don't know. And nobody seems bothered by it. My sister is more insistent than anyone to live with her, just because she feels the same way you do. It was like, don't you want to be with family? Her husband and their two boys. I get along great with them, but I like being
I
on
mean,
my
I
own.
live far away from my family too. I mean, I'm not
Right,
as far because I'm in
right.
Chicago, but when I went to college, we all kind of split up. My family, because even though I went to college in Springfield, my dad went to seminary, into Methodist, the Methodist Church. We didn't grow up as a preacher's kid, but he was our youth. He became a youth leader. But anyway, yeah, my freshman year of college, my brother was not in college yet. He kind of went to school. He kind of did like a secondary degree, kind of like not really. I think he's going back, but he worked a lot. But and I miss my brother a great deal, and I miss my parents, but I try to visit them a lot. I need to see them more. My brother actually sees my parents a lot more than I do because they're closer. I mean, he's in Springfield, they're in like south of Kansas City in Harrisonville, Missouri, which is a small town. And, the church moves them around. So they've been in Kansas City. They've been all around everywhere. And I think they were in Columbia for a while, with the church and stuff. So they get moved around, but I see my family a couple times a year. And at first that was kind of hard for me, because I used to see them a lot more. And our whole family used to be really, really close. When my grandparents were still alive on the Shelton side, we would, my dad's one of 5 children, so everybody would come together all the time. We'd do these lunches and stuff, and it was just really big. But as soon as my grandparents died, I just got this feeling like everybody kind of stopped coming back to visit all the time. Not everybody's there for Christmas anymore. Not everybody's there for Thanksgiving anymore, or all the different holidays and stuff. And that used to really piss me off when I was a kid. I was like, how dare they not come back, or whatever. And then I'm like, people were coming back because their parents were around, because, and then as soon as that was gone, we all have our own families. We all do things. I do holidays here in Chicago with just the kids or just friends, like we do Friendsgiving. I don't go back for Thanksgiving anymore. Not as a political statement or anything. I just don't go back for Thanksgiving. But I go back for Christmas always. I might not this year. I might go to Mexico if Alma is still not here yet. I might go to Mexico because I'm getting really tired of not having my fucking wife here.
Of course,
and not being able to spend time with her. And it's really challenging. And so, but my parents are open to possibly going to Mexico and spending time with the in-laws too. You never know.
Oh,
So
there you go.
yeah. And so we'll see. But yeah, I think it's interesting how some families stay real tight knit together and they never leave the city that they're in, and then other families just people spread out and things like that. But I always wonder about that, because you're out there, you're the only one out there like really far away, but you've got friends and things out there in Los Angeles, which is great. And you go home every once in a while. It's like an 8-hour drive for me to get back to Missouri and see people. It's not, I mean, it's like a day and a half or something for you. It's
To drive?
crazy. I don't know. Yeah. If you were to drive, which I'm sure you wouldn't because it doesn't make any sense, but it's expensive.
I'm trying to remember. I drove out here with a U-Haul trailer when I first moved here.
All those years ago.
Yeah. It took me 2.5 days, and it only took me that long because my car was overheating in Arizona because it was like 117 degrees or something like that. So I had to stop for periodically and wait for the car to cool down because it says car's overheating, want to burst into flames, and I'm stranded on a desert road in the middle of Arizona or something. So I probably could have made it in a day and a half if I went nonstop, or maybe just stopped to sleep or something. I don't know, but I didn't want I didn't want the car to explode before I got to Los Angeles, so I had to wait for it to cool down. Because I remember, and my dad was making fun of me for this when I first told him, and he goes, "You have any trouble driving out there?" I said, "Well, it overheated several times in the desert," and I looked up what causes a car to overheat. And it said, if you're driving uphill, which I was, in extreme heat, carrying a trailer. I was doing all three. And he's like,
That's the trifecta.
Yeah. I was like, I was doing all three. So therefore the car overheated, and he's just laughing so hard at that, I was like, what do you want me to do? I don't know what to do. I was like, you just.
Yeah. But it's an expensive flight too, from Springfield or from St. Louis to.
Yeah,
back and forth.
We talked about this before, and I did take, had a little run-in with Spirit Airlines on the way back, but I did
Spirit.
I know, but I did take a Delta to Salt Lake City, and then Salt Lake City to St. Louis. I gotta tell you, Salt Lake City's airport, amazing. If you ever go through there, Lambert.
I never have.
Yeah, Lambert Airport's old and running down. LAX is even worse, and it's just yes, everything works and everything, but it's just old. You walked in there, it's like a brand new facility. Delta Airlines, if you can afford Delta, those planes are fantastic. And the seat in front of you, you got a little iPad, and you can watch movies, TV shows for free. You can see the flight plan on this thing. You can see how fast.
I've seen those, yeah.
You can see how fast the plane's going. And it's like a little animated thing of the plane flying through the air of the United States. And no problems with kids crying. Everybody's plugged into headphones, watching movies and TV shows. Quietest flight I had. Great looking plane. Little more room than a Spirit Airlines plane.
A lot more room.
Oh, yeah. So if you can afford Delta, I highly recommend Delta. And then going back, I did take a Spirit, but just because it was the cheapest. But it was on a Tuesday, and I was the only person in the aisle. So I had 2 extra seats on my side of me. No one sitting next to me.
That's so nice.
No kids. And, that's when the tears came a little bit. But I was so great. So I was very grateful to be by myself in that moment.
Absolutely.
So I was very comfortable and very grateful for that situation flying back.
Wow, such an emotional trip, and thanks again for wanting to talk about this on the show and everything. I think that many people might not have wanted to talk about something like that, but I think it's good, and I think that a lot of people in this world, they experience tragedies, personal tragedies like this, or celebrations of life of people that they've loved, that they've lost, and that's what we wanted the show to be all about. Is the connection to each other in the world that we live in, and so that's great.
Well,
so thanks for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I did want to talk about it. I don't want to just ignore it. The conversations are going to come up about my parents, and then on one day, 2 months later, oh, by the way, back in May, I got to tell you, why didn't you tell me? And all that type of stuff.
And we didn't take a lot of time off of the show either. I mean, that just happened a few weeks ago, right after we recorded the last episode, honestly. And I didn't know for sure if you wanted to do another episode this quickly. And so, but I'm glad that you do, and that you're able to talk about it while you're still in this place with it. You're still with yourself and processing and things. I think that's an important conversation to have.
That's totally it. It's just still thinking about it, but I'm glad to talk about it. And I don't know, it might be helpful to talk about it and then rewatch it, re-listen to it later on, listen to the episode later on. I think that would be helpful. So, but I am truly doing fine with it. But still thinking about it a lot. So,
well, I'm sorry for your loss again, my friend, but thank you again for opening your heart up and talking about it. I think that also brings us closer together, experiencing those things with your friends and your family, and that brings everybody a little closer together, and makes you think about the things that really matter, in this life. All the things that we always focus on, all the fucking shit that's going on in the world that we're always like, oh, I gotta do this. And it's like, sometimes things like this make you put those brakes on stop, smell the flowers a little bit, look at the people in your life and the people who are there for you and always around. And those are the things I think that matter the most. And sometimes life gives you these little moments to stop and reflect on those and give thanks for the people you've had that you no longer have.
Yeah,
So it's pretty
definitely.
amazing.
And no, I'm fine with it. Yeah. And this is, I do want to move on and not focus on this too much, but I did want to tell one more story about a funeral that was extremely tragic and still affects me every once in a while. And this happened when I was a teacher. I had a little girl, superstar kid in my class, played violin, straight A student, very popular at school, like in the student council and everything. And she was killed in a car accident. And it was just devastating. It's a little 12-year-old girl, and such a dynamite kid. It was so heartbreaking, and the whole school was affected by that. And that every once in a while, that still brings up memories. And in my class, you do these challenges in orchestra. You could challenge each other for a higher chair, and whoever's first chair is the best player, and so forth. And she sat up pretty high, pretty high up in the rankings always. But we left her chair open for the rest of the year in the last concert. And I wrote a little piece of music for her because it was just so heartbreaking, and her mother was fine with that. But that one still gets to me every once in a while, just because it was such a tragic thing, unexpected, surprising thing.
Right.
I mean,
she's so young. You think,
yeah,
oh my God, she's got her whole life ahead of her.
yeah, and just you could tell, bright thing. Even at 12 years old, she is going to be something special later on. Very, very smart, very, very smart little girl, and super friendly and bubbly too. So that I think about that one every once in a while. So now I got, but I think my mother's will recur more often. Obviously it's my mother.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Sure.
but each day gets a bit easier.
Yeah. Yeah, I at some point on this show, I would love to talk about the afterlife and like belief systems and things like that. I don't know if this is the right episode because I think you're pretty close to this. Like this just happened. I don't think this is a good one, but also it's a long and involved conversation that is very interesting to me. I always I love learning about people. I love people in general. And I love to experience different ways of thought, different cultures, and try to understand where people come from, because I don't think there's any two people that believe the exact same thing down the checklist on everything, right?
Oh, of course
you could
not.
go to your Christians, your Jewish individuals, your the people who Muslim, whatever religion you are. And there's not there's not two Christians that believe exactly the same thing, bop, 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 down a checklist of what they believe this world is, what our purpose is, what family means, what's right, what's wrong, like all the different colors of what this world is, and especially the afterlife and what it means to be alive, to experience this life, and to move on from this life. So. But I always find it interesting to find those things. And over the last few years, I've done a lot of soul searching myself into trying to find out what is the meaning of life, right? Like not the hit Monty Python film, because, that it's not that great of a movie, honestly. But like, what is it? What does it mean to be alive, and what does it mean to be dead? And why do certain things happen? Why do people are like, oh, when a tragedy strikes, why do bad things happen to good people, and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. And it's interesting, I'm not a Christian anymore. But I was for many, many years. And now I still consider myself a very spiritual, very spiritual individual. But I don't adhere to one religion. There are still many aspects of Christianity that I hold very near and dear to me, and aspects of other religions and faiths that I do as well. But as far as organized religion goes, it usually drives me up the wall. And I think we all mistake the map for the territory, to quote my acting professor from college. I think that we sometimes get so caught up in all the minutia that we forget what the big picture of everything is. But so I've been doing a lot of soul searching over the last uh, I don't know, 5, 10 years, but really the last few years of what what is the nature of consciousness? What does it mean? What is reality? And 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 when you start to think about that, you start to peel away all these different layers of onions of well, if that is this, and if this is a possibility, then what about this, and what about this, and the concept of past lives. And I went to the School of Metaphysics for a while when I was in. I think I might have talked about this on the show, but I don't know if I have. But I went to the School of Metaphysics for almost a year when I was going through a particularly difficult time in my adult life, and I happened to find that right at the time. And the School of Metaphysics is not a religious thing, and yet it is. They welcome all religions, all walks of life, all people of different, whatever you believe is fine, because it's more about uh, trying to make yourself only reliant on yourself without the need for any other person, place, or thing for your own happiness. And to create that balance within yourself and to understand why you have negative energies and positive energies and things like that. And it deeply changed my life. Going to the School of Metaphysics for that little bit of time. I used to be a complete neurotic mess. And people that know me now might still be like, Nathan, you're still a fucking neurotic mess. And to some extent, they are correct. But I am far less of a neurotic mess than I used to be when I was going to the School of Metaphysics and I was meditating all the time. And I think that's part of it, is that I was meditating all the time because it's part of the practice when you go there. And through meditation, you start to find your days elongating and time that you didn't know existed. And it starts to reorganize your thought process, and you start to think deeper and harder about all the things that make up the world. And I started to really look at the concept of past lives and things like that. And this is a conversation, I think, for another episode. But I have I've been reading a lot of amazing books and watching a lot of really fun and interesting documentaries. Because Bryan, you and I talked when we were talking about this podcast. We're like, what are we going to make our podcast about? And we were looking at like ancient alien theory and like, because you and I both get into those conspiracy theory things like crazy, and like. Yeah. Aliens and stuff like that, and simulation theory and 9/11 and all that stuff that we're just all like, wow, go. But a lot of this ties into that, especially when you talk about interdimensional beings and I'm very interested now in the concept of time and how we perceive time in our reality, in this reality. And like I was just talking about, a little bit ago about the beginning, middle, and an end of this life, but consciousness being much greater than that, because I still am a spiritual person. And I still do believe that there is a spiritual entity that is me housed in this body that is Nathan in this life. It doesn't necessarily mean, and I don't believe, personally, I don't believe that when I die, I go to this other plane of existence called heaven, where I just sit on a fluffy cloud and slap hands with all the other people that got it right, and then there's other people down there being poked with a pitchfork from some cartoon devil. I don't believe that. I don't believe that and that sounds like the most boring bullshit ever, just to sit in some other plane of existence and do nothing but watch the people down on earth and be like, and then all these new people coming in all the time and all this stuff. It's just like, nah. I think there's something so much more beautiful and complex about consciousness and about how we're all connected. And I don't think we have even scratched the surface of that. And that is what makes me excited to be alive these days. And that I'm no longer afraid of death because of this. Because to me, whenever that happens, if I'm an old man, which I believe I will be, or if I'm, if I die of a heart attack because of all the stress I'm under, like tomorrow, either way, I believe that consciousness does move on, and that there's so much more to explore across the vastness of what it means to be a conscious being. And I think this world that we're living in, this earth that we're living in, I think it's only a small fraction of that. So, yeah.
I'm very interested in all that stuff. I think about those things every once in a while. What happens after you die? I'm not sure. I was raised Catholic, so I was taught to believe in heaven and hell, but I really don't. Yeah, I really don't think that's the case. And But then I'm not sure. I don't know. Nobody knows for sure. Who knows? It's a good discussion. Lots of people have a lot of opinions on this. All the religions in the world, everybody's a little different. Um, there's no clear answer, one right or wrong answer. Nobody's right or wrong. But I do agree with you that humans haven't evolved enough to really know what it's like to be a conscious being. Like there's some other level of intelligence that we haven't reached yet to truly understand what's going on in the universe and to truly know why things happen, good and bad. And people justify it with, oh, this is, it's a yin and yang. They balance themselves out. Like, I don't think it's that, or I don't know that it's that, but it's just so many unanswered questions that we're not smart enough to answer. So we make up ideas and make up religions and make up things to try and answer those questions.
Another thing that I've been coming to coming to realization with is that the possibility that it's not that humankind, I should say, hasn't evolved enough. It's that we've long forgotten where we exist in the relationship to the physical world and the spiritual world. Because to me, I think that a long, long time ago, longer than most of us realize, we've actually been around. If we're looking at time linearly, which I don't believe that all realities look at time linearly, and I do believe in the concept of other realities. But if even within this world that we're talking about, I think at one time humanity realized where it existed in the cosmos, realized where our connection to each other is, and that we are all connected beyond just being humans on Earth. We are all connected to one consciousness, to a thing, to the world, right? And that we had the ability to not be so stuck in this physical realm. And I think that at some point we did become more stuck, and then we forgot our potential. And I think mankind is constantly striving to find their potential, and they keep scraping away at little tiny corners of it, but they're limited because they're so limited by what they consider to be the confines of this reality. And that the people who are actually doing a lot more interesting work are the people who are looking into the concepts of the soul, the concepts of reality, where sciences and math and religion, or I should say, and spirituality connect, where magic and the spiritual world and the physical world connect, the metaphysical world. I think the doctors, the scientists, the free thinkers of the world that are moving into those directions are the ones that are actually going to help us take us into the next step in our evolutionary process of mind, spirit, and body. And that's where my mindset is, and my focus. That's where I want to be. That's where I'm thinking more and along those lines. And it's helping me so much in thinking about that stuff. It helps me to deal with things like what you're going through right now with the loss of your parent. Whenever I eventually go through that myself, I think I'm better equipped now than I was a few years ago because of how I see the world these days and how I see reality. And it's not like I'm going to be able to deal with everything like, oh, I can just take everything as it comes. It's still going to be hard, but it's not going to be as hard as if I were just living in that same life I was living a long time ago when I was like, a Christian and just like worried about, am I going to go to hell? Am I going to go to heaven? Are they going to go to hell? Are they going to go to heaven? All this stuff that's like, no, it doesn't. It's like, first of all, if you're just being good just so you can go someplace at the end when you die, that's bullshit. I mean, like, you're missing so many beautiful aspects of life because you're just thinking about the end so much. It's like, I think there's a reason that we're all on this earth and that we're all going through life. I think there's a reason for it beyond just doing it. That's,
and I hear on all that stuff, and I've never been a great thinker or philosopher, but one thing that I took one philosophy class in college, and on the last day, this guy, he's kind of like you. He just talks and talks and talks and talks and talks.
Well, tell me how you really feel, Brian.
No, I'm
He's
just
like you. He just talks and talks incessantly.
It's not. I'm not complaining. I'm just telling you this is what happened. I was like, I need a co-host that talks, and I'll just fill in a couple little filler words here and there. So this guy, but in his class, nobody talked. Okay, he's a very, probably one of the smartest people I ever met in my life, knowingly anyway. And one thing always stuck with me all these years later. He says, everybody asks me the meaning of life. It's a cliche. I don't like answering that question, but the true meaning of life is to experience as much as possible. And it's not. And he said it's not about religion. It's not about believing in another thing. Experience as much, go out there, do these things, meet people, do a new activity, get uncomfortable, do things that you out
Yes.
of your comfort zone. And
Yes.
that and his definition for the meaning of life, that always stuck with me. I was like,
I
man,
totally agree with that.
there's a
I
lot
agree with
there's a
that.
lot to that. So I when this topic comes up, I always remember that guy and that comment, because
How
I believe it too, that you just experience as much as possible, and that
yes.
makes your life more meaningful.
How often in this world today do we as human beings limit ourselves? It's
Right.
always us. We blame everything else. We blame everything outside of ourselves for why we can't accomplish something, why we fail, why we lose, why we really don't ever try. And that's why, is because we're so afraid of being uncomfortable. We're so afraid of getting something wrong or looking foolish or being remembered poorly or whatever, all that stuff that really doesn't matter in the long run. When really, if we embrace the gray, embrace the darkness, jump out beyond the comfort zone, way beyond it. The farther you jump, the more you experience, the more life you really live, and you just take a bite out of it, and the more you are transformed in this lifetime. Whereas so many people, like we talked about, they never leave their hometown, they never leave. And it's not all about travel, and I get that, because some people don't have the means to do that too. But when there's a will, there's a way. And I agree with your teacher, and I agree with that mentality. And that's basically what I've come to the terms with too, from everything I've been, experiencing and reading and trying to grow, is that our purpose is to experience
Everything
everything
you
you can,
possibly can.
everything you possibly can, and and then some. And the more you experience, the more you enhance the entirety of the world, in little ways and in big ways. I mean, the more you do, the more you create, the more you experience, the better you are at interpreting and creating into the world, that because we're all creators, just like, art's arguably the grand creator or whatever we're a part of. And I think you can, the more you understand creation, the more you understand that you can create more. And by doing that, you help other people experience life. And it's like this great ripple effect. And we're all out here rippling into each other and experiencing different people as they come into our lives and what they mean to us, and different modes of art and science and philosophies and all these different things that we can experience. And it's truly wonderful to be alive, I think, and to experience these things. And it makes you, it sucks that we have these systems put into place that hold us back, like money, which really is only designed to make some people get more power in this world and other people not have it. And religion does the same thing. And, all aspects of our socioeconomic system too, and keeping certain individuals, whole classes of people down, and not giving people rights and taking away rights from other people. And it's just like, we're all human. We're all human. We're all on this earth. We're all experiencing it together, and we are completely missing the point most of the time. We're fighting amongst ourselves. We're taking things from each other and from the world that was given to us to use, to look at. We're, we could completely transform this world overnight if everybody would just stop a little bit and have that mentality of a positive experience, and not find petty things to be fighting with each other all the time about. From little things like he stole my toy, up to big things like he stole my nuke. It's like,
Right.
you know,
That's a tall order, my friend, but I agree with you on that, and it's going to take a long time to get more and more people on that side of things. It's this, people accept the world for way it is, rather than trying to change it for the better. So I'd love, because that's again, that's one thing I've learned. I've tried different things. I remember, being and going back to Boy Scouts and remembering all that stuff, all the different merit badges you could earn, and all these different subjects. Man, I learned so much about all that stuff. And as a kid, I didn't really appreciate it at that time, but I had the experience doing this. I learned how to do a sailboat, learn how to, learn how to build a shelter out in the woods without tent or anything like that. How to start a fire without matches and things like, things like that. Like, no, I don't use those things, but I
But
still
it's
have those.
made you.
I
Yeah.
yeah, I have those experiences, and it's part of who I am these today. And all those years ago, it still affects me, and still think about those things. But as adults, I think you tend to kind of get in a groove, and you don't do it as much. So we got to kind of. I
I
need to
think,
remind myself to do more,
yes,
experience more.
I think we let life the way that we've created, because remember, we've created this world. The world that we live in today is all created by humans, and we create boxes for ourselves. We dig our own graves from the minute we're born. We limit our potential. We limit the potential of those around us for various reasons, usually ego reasons, but we cage ourselves. But we don't have to do that. You can break free from the paradigms that we've put into place. We can do that. I believe that 100%, but it's so hard because we program it every day. I have to make money. I have to go to work to make money, and I hate my job, but I have to do it because I have to make money, because I have to support my kids. And if I can't support my kids, they're going to die on the street, and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And it's like we tell ourselves, I can't all the time. I don't know how many times in my life I've said I can't do something, but every single fucking time in my life, little things to big things that I've said, I have no idea how I'm going to do this. It scares the shit out of me, but I'm going to do it. And I take that jump. It's always been the most rewarding, life-changing, momentum, encompassing growth, like everything in my life. Every time in my life that I've had been catapulted to a next level or been immensely rewarded, it has been because of that. And yet I still have to fight with myself all the time about things. And we get in these lock boxes. But they're all things that we can control. We can all help each other get out of it too, but it's not easy because it's systematic and it's been done. We've been doing it to ourselves for eons, for time immemorial. Since the dawn of civilization, we have been boxing ourselves in, trying to control each other and ourselves and tell ourselves, limit the potential of what we could be, because we are more than human. We are a spiritual being within this body and within this world. And I think that there are magics that exist, and I've done my best to try to teach my kids that magic does exist in this world. And I'm not necessarily talking about fairies and elves and goblins and all that bullshit, although maybe, but that it's a wondrous world, and it is full of mysterious things. And even though we know so much, we think we know so much, we know nothing. We know nothing about our existence. And that is supremely exciting to me, because it means that there's so much more to learn,
Couldn't agree more, man. This is we keep going on this forever, but
yeah, man. And I'm so excited. Yeah, we should wrap it up. But I'm just excited that I have people like you in my life that we get to go through this with. I'm so thankful for you, for your friendship, for the collaborations that we have, and the other people that I have in my life too. And I'm sure you are as well. It's so great to go through this life and to recognize that there's some people that just stick with you for some reason. In this life, there's something that we connected on a level that few people get to, and I'm just so thankful for you.
I was going to tell you that. There are a few people that I immediately clicked with in my life, and you're one of those. It's like less than 5. It's maybe only 3 people where I just immediately click with that person, and I'm lifelong friends with them. And that is such a special and rare thing. So I'm so grateful for our friendship and our continuing discussion about everything and anything. And this is a good discussion. I'm glad we got to do this. And
you feel good. You feel good about it.
Even better than when we started a little while ago.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting to think about. Even though we lose people in this life, it's exciting to know they're part. They're still part of us, I believe. And that they're out there, and we're all experiencing it, and that maybe in another life or maybe in another reality or something, there'll be more to experience. It's just so exciting. And I'm excited to be on this journey with you, my friend.
Me too. Me too. A lot more to talk about.
Yeah. All you people out there too listening, we want you to chime into this conversation. If anything that we talked about today hit you in a way that is an emotional impact or got your brain just sizzling and you're like, I want to talk about this. We want to hear from you. Please hit us up on our social media, hit us up on our, send us an email. Bryan and I are incredibly personable people. We love hearing from others out there who are going through this crazy life. And we want to hear from you. So hit us up. And as always, thanks for joining us, Bryan. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for sharing so much of your personal, journey recently with us, and for bringing me along with you, man. Thanks.
No, so great to talk about. I'm glad we did it. Really, I'm glad we did it. Yeah.
Until next time, buddy.
See you.